source for political, pop culture, and sports talk on the radio. The Julio Rivera Show. Hashtag conservative. With no fuck left to give.
And as promised, straight from the left coast, my buddy Joe Messina joins us. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it, Julio.
It's been too long. I've been trying to get you on for a minute, and just things have been crazy. We've got the new website going and everything. Why don't you tell people about your website before we start?
Well, if you want to learn a little bit more about me, the show, and the stations we're on, you can head over to therealside.com. That's the real side, not REEL, but REAL, like, keeping it real. And you get everything you want over there. You can even be entertained on the side. I think I sing on there once in a while. I don't know.
That's awesome. Are you more of a crooner, or are you kind of a belter, or just
No. I'm the guy that grew up with the Sinatras of the world and the Dean Martins. And my youngest brother's name is Dean.
Really?
Go figure. Oh yeah, my youngest cousin, female cousin. I have a Dina and a Dean, and they were both named after Dean Martin.
That's funny, too, because I'm from Paterson, New Jersey originally, and I grew up around so many Italians. I've dated so many Italian girls, and it's like I always feel like there's a little part of me that's Italian somewhere.
Yeah, when you date the Italian girls, you got to wear Kevlar, don't you?
Yeah, definitely, man.
Bubble wrap.
They do not play, man. They do not play. My last girlfriend was Italian. She almost killed me. So, and that's a true story, which we won't get into. But
no.
But one of the things I did want to get into is we've seen an attack, obviously, on Donald Trump from the left. We've seen kind of really no attention being paid by the mainstream media to the many indiscretions of Hillary Clinton. We can go through, WikiLeaks, through, her defending a rapist, rather, of somebody who actually brutally beat the woman into a coma, or I should say the child, because she was really a child.
Yeah.
Yes. Beat her into a coma and raped her so viciously that she could not have children. You don't hear anything about that. You obviously don't hear anything, or they don't harp on too much on Bill Clinton and everything that he's done. But you get these women now that I don't know if they're being paid off or where this is all coming from. They're just coming out of the woodwork. Like Donald Trump inappropriately touched me. He looked at me the wrong way. Rubbed up against me on the subway. What is this all about? What do you equate this to?
Oh, you know what this is all about. This is what they did back in 2012, 2008. It's a consistent mantra from the left that Republicans are bad. And any Republican you put up, remember, Ronald Reagan was too old. He was senile. He was a nasty man. They always go on the negative with our people. And as far as all this other stuff goes, what else are you going to, the war on women, for instance. Remember how that was? It was every Republican hated women because they were against abortion. Actually, we're pro-life. It's not that we're against abortion. We're just for life. And so they stick on this mantra and they try to get the point across that way. Think about what they're doing with Trump. They are throwing everything they can at him. The tax issue, the woman issue, and his bigotry or his racism or what have you. The guy's got. He's up in some states to almost a 20% support from the black or / African American community. You don't get that being a racist. And I love the joke. You probably do the same thing I do. I pull up the clips from Jesse Jackson, from Al Sharpton, talking about what a great man he is, how he's bringing jobs to the inner city, how much he has supported the black community. Well, you can't have it both ways.
Exactly.
You can't. Right? You can't be a racist on Thursday and all of a sudden you're not a racist anymore on Friday.
Exactly. You know what it was? He wasn't a racist until he re-registered as a Republican. Then all of a sudden he magically became this racist, and it kills me because he's actually during this election cycle in earnest gone out. He went to Milwaukee. He went to Detroit. He went to these places to try to reach out to these communities to ask them, what are the issues, And this is something actually that I think was kind of understated in the first election when Hillary Clinton made a statement, or Trump actually made a statement that he was going out into these communities to try to find out what the problems were. And Hillary Clinton countered, well, I was preparing for this debate and preparing to be president.
Yeah, I'm taking a nap.
Exactly, yeah, right? Getting whatever it is that they pump her full of to get her ready to be out there. But isn't it the essence of preparation for that job to actually go out and listen to the people, find out what the issues are, so that way when you do win, you can properly address what those issues are. Because listen, I think that the reason that the black community is not really rallying around Hillary Clinton the way that they did about Barack Obama. Obviously, there's the color issue, but take that out of the equation for a minute. They've lived through a Clinton administration, and did things get better for them? Of course not. No. Big progressive politics is about controlling people, not necessarily providing opportunities. They kind of want to put you in a position where you have to depend on them. So then that way they kind of guarantees the left your vote, but you never get to the point where you empower yourself under big government.
Julio, I've always said it's not equality they want, it's control that they want, all right? Let's just be real about it. And here's the other thing. When you go into the voting booth, and I'm not, don't take this the wrong way, because I'm not saying the minorities are lazy in any stretch of the imagination, but the Democrats have made it, have told the minorities, have beaten the minorities that they can't succeed in America without the help of the Democrats. So what they do is you go into the voting booth and you have I won't even say a welfare check. You have some kind of government assistance in one hand, and you've got your ballot in the other hand. And depending on the box you check will depend on how much of that government assistance that you continue to have come in. Now, if you're out of work and that's all you have for the moment to feed your family, come on, we want to take care of our families. We want to make sure they have food on the table. What are you going to vote for? You're in a position now that if you check the wrong box, you guys may only be able to eat once a day. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? You just don't know what's in store now. Like, they have made some people so dependent on the feds in many ways. I don't care if it's healthcare, food on the table, whatever, that you're really in a bad spot depending on the box you check.
Yeah, and I think that these people just really truly have a status agenda. Their agenda is to destroy the middle class. And what they did, and the way that they did it, or they're doing it, is by promising everyone the world. We saw Barack Obama come in, and immediately on the heels of us having these big economic issues, he wanted to spend, $787 billion on this supposed stimulus. We never got the shovel-ready jobs, but what did we get? We got Obama phones, we got cash for clunkers, we got all these giveaways. So we get people voting for these giveaways, but they don't realize that eventually the money to pay for these things is going to disappear. And in concert with that, the opportunity for jobs are drying up through their open borders kind of agenda that they have. This is the globalization. They're sucking us into that, and they're doing everything they can to kind of limit our sovereignty. And obviously, you being there in California, you see it up close because you guys have one of the biggest problems with illegal immigration.
Oh, yeah. Well, our governor has said we have no borders, okay? We have no borders to the south. We have no borders to the north, the west, the east. Come on in. We've got plenty for you. And now he has just, with a swipe of a pen, he's given the ability for 400,000 inmates to vote. Okay, so he has just approved 400,000 more votes for Hillary Clinton. And there is no checks. Like, I'm a trustee on a school board, okay? I recently had an incident that blew my mind. So we have there are people that came in with proper documentation, and the parents were here before the kids were. They brought the kids in. The kids had the wrong kind of passport, so we couldn't register them in school. They couldn't attend an American school. However, because I'm on the board, the registrar called me and said, send them back in, and just have them tell us that they're here illegally, because then we can't ask them any more questions. We just have to register them.
That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard of. You know what the thing that is really scary is if Hillary Clinton wins again is he's already kind of Jerry Brown, your whacked out governor there, has already made it, and maybe you can clarify this for me, but I believe it's when you re-register to vote at the time that you renew your driver's license. But in concert with that, he's also allowed illegal immigrants to obtain driver's licenses, thus registering to them to vote when they get them.
So the federal law says there has to be a distinction. You can issue an ID to somebody that's here illegally, but it has to be a very you have to be able to tell that they're here illegally. So when you match the license up to the ID card, there's virtually no difference, with the exception that there's a notation at the very bottom of the card, 3 stars, undocumented citizen, or some ridiculous term, and then 3 more stars. That's the extent of calling them out. So, and because there's another law, you've heard about this with the motor voter law that we have here, so that when you get your driver's license or when you get an ID at DMV, whenever you go into the DMV to apply for something, it automatically registers you to vote. How do you like that? And if you don't check a box, it registers you as what we call a declined estate here in the state of California. So when you go in, it doesn't matter whether you're a Dem or Republican. But I can tell you something else, Julio. When we have the naturalization ceremonies here, the SEIU runs the facilities that we have the naturalization ceremonies in Los Angeles County. Now, we have caught them. Now, think about this. This is flat out illegal. We have caught them handing out in the package that the new citizens, and God bless them for going through the process, but they get these packets, and in the package is a voter registration card. And in every one of those packets, when we've had to kind of steal them or yank them out of somebody's hand, the Dem box on the registration cards already checked, and what they're told by the person handing them, there's a little speech they give them. We're so glad you've become citizens. Welcome to the family. Democracy is what it's all about. It's great that you've decided to live in a democratic environment. That kind of stuff. So, to somebody coming in who doesn't really get it, what are they thinking? Well, sure, I want to be a Democrat. I'm for democracy. I want the democratic rule, right?
Yeah, exactly. It makes perfect sense. And you know what I'm afraid of is that, like you guys have Governor Moonbeam over there, with Hillary Clinton becoming president, that's going to happen nationwide. That's why I make the argument with these people that have been fighting me. Like, listen, I was a big supporter of Senator Cruz. I went and I worked in several different states. I was in Nevada, which I learned how to say it properly. It is Nevada and not Nevada. New Hampshire, and I was a county chairman here in New Jersey, and I was traveling, doing a lot of TV and stuff, like trying to stump for Cruz and whatnot. And people turned on me in such a vicious manner when I decided, and I didn't do it immediately. It wasn't like the night of the Indiana primary, I was on Newsmax it was me versus Roger Stone. And it was I was sitting there killing Trump. I was killing him. I was like a mercenary. Leading up to that primary, hitting Trump as hard as I could. And, it wasn't like the day after I decided I'm going to support Trump. It took a little while, but, prior to the convention, I decided that the right thing to do was for all of us to unite and try to, our total combined power to try to stop Hillary Clinton from becoming president. Now, I've got a really nasty backlash. Now, these people don't seem to understand that what's going on in California will happen nationwide under a third term of really the Obama policy with Hillary Clinton, because precedent is being set in all these states, and people don't understand the way that law works. If it happens in California, then it'd be a lot easier for it to happen in another state, and then another state, and then another state, and then what are you going to wind up happening? Hillary Clinton has no intention of enforcing immigration law at all. So let's say the number is anywhere between 15 and 30 million of them here. Those are 15 to 30 million Democrat voters in the next 2020 election. So, how are you ever going to get that perfect conservative into the White House if you're going to have potentially 30 million Democrat voters in the next election?
Yeah, listen, let's do some simple numbers here. I keep telling people you really don't need a college education for this. First of all, if you look at the jobs being created, the majority of jobs being created that you hear about every week or every month are part-time jobs. Most of them are they are not full-time, life-sustaining jobs. And I'm not talking about Burger King flipper jobs. I'm talking about the same jobs that used to be 40-plus hours a week have now been cut down to 28 to 32 hours so they can skirt Obamacare. So with that in mind, think about something. You have 94, almost 95 million Americans out of work. These are Americans that have the ability to work, but they're out of work. There are 350 million, give or so, Americans in this country. So I tell people, let's just keep it really simple. So you got about 255 million Americans left after the 95 have been pushed aside. Take about 75 million. Give me those kids from 1 to 16 or something. They're not working, they're going to school, they're doing whatever. You can see how the numbers get down. So you've got about 180 million people, maybe, give or take a few, that are actually carrying the load for everybody else. You've got people in that equation. You have houses that used to have 1.5 jobs, and they had medical insurance, and one of the two were working, and everything was, I won't say everything was fine, but we had the normal lifestyle going on. Now you've got three jobs plus in the house, because they're all part-time jobs. Mommy and Daddy are having to work just to keep the mortgage and keep food on the table. We're still there. We're not out of this yet, people. And I'll tell you what, depending on who gets in, will depend on how fast we drop. I don't think, look, even if Trump gets in, he's not the savior, right? Let's get that straight. He's not going to be able to turn the economy around in a short period of time. We've had 8 years of this garbage. So it's not going to happen that fast. And people have to realize that. She gets in, it's really all over, because the only way she can fix this is to keep manufacturing money, is to keep playing games, is to keep making sure that she props up the market. Well, think about something here. Every time the Fed, what happens every time the Fed even talks about raising the interest rate, Julio?
Every time they talk about the Fed, what inflation
when they talk
goes
about,
up?
yeah, when they talk about raising the interest rate, for home loans and stuff like that, the market takes a nosedive, 300 and 400 points. So I'm telling people, think about this. If the money people know how bad it's going to get, and we regular Joes don't, just imagine when the thing changes hands and Trump says, hey, we can't keep it's phony. What's going on in the market?
Exactly. Yeah. No, there's
phony.
a big bubble, because every time you print money, the money that we actually have, the actual money that's already in circulation, keeps getting devalued. So that's
right.
The reason why everything costs so much more, and we've had all these issues with inflation. But the thing that I'm worried about the most, and you were saying that that Trump can't necessarily turn it around immediately,
quickly, yeah,
not quickly, but what he can do immediately, through tax reform and through regulatory reform, is that businesses can sprout up. And I think that that's really going to be the key to saving the economy here. Honestly, it's going to be based on new opportunity. The thing that I worry, that I was going to say with Hillary Clinton, is a couple of years ago, she gave a speech where she said, don't ever let anyone tell you that the private sector creates jobs. Now, when I hear someone say something like that, that means that they don't want people to have the power to create their own, basically their own path to prosperity. They want everyone to be dependent on government. So I think ultimately, if you're a statist, right? Let's say in your mind you want to have status control, and you want to create a police state and have two classes of people, the very elite at the top, where there's not going to be many of them, and then everybody else is kind of just poor, because you're thinning out and you're doing the whole wealth redistribution thing. The easiest way to do that is to eliminate the ability for people to create new businesses, and you do that through over-regulating, and you do that through taxing the crap out of them. Trump immediately said that he's going to put a moratorium on any new regulations, and he's going to look to eliminate, and I read an article a couple of weeks ago, he's going to look to eliminate up to 70% of the current regulations hampering businesses that are on the books now. I would think immediately that's going to signal for the people who do have money, who've been holding on to it because this is not the correct climate right now. Like right now, if you want to start a big business, why would you do it when you have Obamacare? You're going to have to pay the Obamacare mandate if you have over 50 employees. It doesn't make sense to try to invest in the American economy right now. But there's people that have money that can do it and can create jobs, but they're just not doing it.
Yep. I have a friend of mine that owns a hotel chain, and there's 52 hotels in the chain. He broke them up into separate corporations. Mm-hmm. And he said it was a lot of money, but he said, I'll tell you what, it saves him about $120,000 a year. So it was worth breaking them up into separate corporations. He said, I was already keeping separate bookkeeping for each and every one of them. What the hey? We just broke them up into separate corporations, brought them up under one umbrella, so that that one umbrella corporation doesn't own all those employees. It just owns the stock in those. And that's how he got around the Obamacare mandate, because it really would have killed them. And then the other thing, when you look at the you and I, we were talking about this a long time ago, but when you look at the $15 an hour, now you said you were in LA recently, some of those places, can you imagine having to pay those people $15 an hour?
Oh, God.
You those little mom and pop stands, those little places that you probably went to eat and enjoyed going to, those places couldn't stand. I tell people, you're where you're at, where your show originates out of, there's a whole bunch of those little mom and pop pizza places and restaurants and things like that. When those people sit down and do their budget for the year, you're talking about doubling their employment budget. You're talking about, and people don't realize, it's not just $15 an hour. Hello. They have to match federal taxes. They've got workman's comp that goes up depending on salaries. There's a whole bunch of other things that go on. So you go from $15 to about $21 an hour for that employee. The mom and pop organizations cannot afford it. They just can't afford that unless you want to pay $8 a slice for pizza.
Exactly, and what's going to wind up happening is these people, if they get their way, there's going to be a small sliver of $15 an hour jobs, and then you're going to have automation. I mean, we're already seeing that here. Like, I know in New Jersey, we don't have a mandated $15 an hour, but there's a lot of all the little quick checks and those places like that. Those sandwich shops, you just sit there and you plug in what you want, and then you get your food that way. And you're not going to have service. You're not going to have any kind of service-based industry because you're not going to get away with paying people minimum wage, which is, minimum wage is for minimum skill and minimal effort in a lot of cases. You know what I mean? Like, these aren't hard jobs. You shouldn't sit there and be a dishwasher making $15 an hour. I mean, I remember when I started in the collections industry, it took me a good couple. I remember I worked for a bank, and I'm going to tell you, right out of the military, I worked for a bank, and I worked full time. I was making $16,000 a year in a full time position. Could you imagine that? So, like, $15 an hour is the equivalent of what, $600 a week? That's about what, $32,000 a year. So $32,000 a year to work at McDonald's, where I was making half of that working in a corporate environment, doing a difficult job, because let me tell you, debt collection has not gotten easier in the 18 years that I've been in this industry. So, it's really something to chew on, man.
Yeah, and again, look, when I was in high school, one of the jobs I had was at Burger King. I was part of the night shift. And I don't know, I joked with somebody today, so this was so long ago, I think they paid us in pebbles, not even money, but I think it was like $2.80 an hour. When I got a 10-cent raise after being there for 90 days and doing a good job, that was great. Then I got a quarter. So these were things that taught us that I think our young people are losing right now. But these are things that taught us that, look, you start at the bottom. Okay, you learn the job because you don't know everything coming in. So you start at the bottom, you learn the job, and then you start to roll it out from there, right? You do better, you learn different things, you get a raise, you get more money, and then you decide at some point in time, I don't want to be here flipping burgers the rest of my life. I don't want to be here cleaning the grill for the next 20 years. I need to be able to, and I did. I moved on to other jobs. I got my first apartment. I got my first car. That's how life works, and that's how it should work, because you respect all the things you work hard for. You respect. Look, you probably grew up the same way I did, with parents that said, "Hey, you know what? You keep your nose to the grindstone. You work hard. You do a good job, and you'll do well in life." You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely, and I think that's been lost on people. I think that our government at this point has created this entitlement society where these kids. That's why these millennials are the way that they are. And that's why they were so rabid, Bernie supporters, because they want everything free. They want everything handed to them. They expect the government to take care of them. And in a sense, that's an extension of what happened with the Great Society and the way the Great Society affected the poorer communities. Because then at that point, it marginalized the role of the family in their life, because at that point, instead of having the family be the earner, they turn towards the leaking breast of big government to sustain them, in a sense, instead of having to go out there and actually work for anything. And that's actually seeping through from not only the poorer people in our society, but now to these middle class millennials that are going to grow up thinking that they're owed something somehow instead of working for it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the other part, some of the issues that we're having is, in my day, we had people in the house that had been in World War II, that had been in the Korean War, and so they understood what freedom was about. They understood what it took to maintain the lifestyle we had here in America. That's gone now. We don't have them now. We have, the Vietnam vets are very old, and forgive me for saying it this way, but they are dying off, okay? They were not a relished or a respected group of military. Now, that's not coming from me, because as far as I'm concerned, anybody who puts a gun on and goes over there to support and fight for freedom for someone is a hero in my eyes. Then you've got Desert Storm and Operation Freedom and all these other things that went on that weren't the real wars of World War I, World War II, that kind of stuff. So we don't really see, and all we hear is negatives as to why we were there. Well, the heck with why we were there for the moment. You had people that jumped in front of bullets. So whether people want to hear this or not, in Afghanistan, in Iraq, and other places, those soldiers went there not just to kill people. They went there because they believe in freedom for humans. And now, if you really would sit down and talk to soldiers that came back from there, in war-torn little cities all across Afghanistan and Iraq, you've got kids that are out in the street playing ball. You have little businesses, mom-and-pop businesses that are opening up there, and things get back to normal in some places until we deserted them, till we deserted our own men, till we deserted those cities that we went in and helped build back up again. It's ridiculous. See, we are the laughing stock now of the earthly universe, if you would.
Yeah, and that's truly, truly sad. Listen, hey, Joe, I really want you to come back on soon. I think this was a fantastic chat. It's a pleasure to have you on. Why don't you tell people once again where they can find you?
Well, if you go over to therealside.com, that's therealside.com, you can find stations, times. You can find my classic podcast because I have no nothing old on that site. So.
Classic. Everything is classic.
You like that?
Yeah, I like that. That's a nice way to dress it up. You're a marketing genius. Everyone, that was Joe Messina of The Real Side. Thank you so much for being here, and we look forward to having you on soon. On the other side of the break, we will have Andrea Kaye.
Politics got you down? Is your team in last place? Is your significant other sleeping with your neighbor? Well, cheer up. The Julio Rivera Show is on. Deal with your problems afterwards.
Aforementioned Andrea Kaye on the California Love Show. How are you today, Andrea?
I'm awesome. I'm loving that we got some actual love going on between the East Coast and West Coast.
Exactly. Biggie and Tupac would be proud if they can see what came of this at this point. Listen, today's a crazy day. I can't believe it. The debate, the third and final, and it just happened so quickly, right? Between the first, the second, the third. These things, it's been like your head spins because the news cycle, there's so much stuff coming out between, false or unprovable allegations against Donald Trump. You got WikiLeaks stuff. And in the middle of all of it, we've got the presidential election going on. So let me ask you a question, right? Donald Trump, in my opinion, and I don't, you can tell me what you thought, but I mean, I think he came up a little short in the first one. I think he won resoundingly in the second one. This third one, moderated by Fox News' Chris Wallace, who happens to be a registered Democrat, is the same Q&A format of the first debate where Donald Trump, seemed to have a little bit issue, stumbled a little bit. What does he need to do this evening, according to Andrea Kaye, to come away with the victory?
I think he needs to follow the same format that he did with the second debate. And that means I'm hoping that we're going to see him come out with some pre-debate battle like he did with the second one. He punked a lot of reporters because he invited them to what they thought was going to be just a typical presser and a photo op, and they walk in and are confronted with Bill Clinton's accusers, as well as a woman who was vilified and blamed for her own rape when she was 12 years old by Hillary Clinton. The woman was raped so savagely she couldn't have children, and Hillary Clinton blamed her for it.
And beaten into a coma as well.
Yeah, and so, the media was angry that he pulled that, and it was a shot across the bow. So she was rocked on her heels even before the debate happened. And then what he did during that debate was he prosecuted her. He pivoted, he answered what he had to on the stupid audio tape, and then he made it be about what it needs to be about, which is prosecuting her for her crimes, her corruption, and reminding the American people over and over and over again why she deserves to not be behind the desk at the Oval Office, but why she needs to be behind bars.
Exactly. And you know what? That's another thing, too, because if you listen to that audio where she was laughing about this situation with Kathy Shelton is her name, there was, you have to think about from the perspective of being an attorney. And you have to follow ethics. You have to be ethical to be an attorney. And one of the things that's kind of lost on people is that she joked about the mishandling of the evidence that was submitted to the lab. She said that the underwear was submitted. What they did was they cut out the bloody part of the underwear, which supposedly had the blood of the attacker, and that was submitted with the underwear, the total underwear plus the part that was cut out. And she said that what wound up being returned back was the testing only on the underwear, and that the cutout portion wound up coming up missing. So now if you're an attorney on either side of the case, right, and she believes personally that the accused rapist was guilty, she, which she clearly expressed on that tape, doesn't that speak to her lack of ethics as an attorney? Shouldn't she have been disbarred for knowingly, being involved in a case where she knows that evidence specifically was mishandled and she did not bring it to the attention of the court?
Well, I think that there was a lot of obviously personal and professional ethics missing in Hillary Clinton. She's missing any kind of ethic gene, okay? Mm-hmm. She doesn't have the ethics microchip inside of her, whether we're talking about her personally, whether we're talking about her professionally as an attorney, as the wife of the governor in Arkansas, her time as Secretary of State, or when she was on the Watergate, committee and was fired for lying. When I listened, what stuck out to me in listening to her laugh and laugh and laugh, as particularly when it came to the evidence part, was she said, this was a fascinating case. This was interesting. The sad thing was, and then she goes on to talk about the evidence. That's what strikes you as sad in the case of a 12-year-old girl raped and beaten so savagely she was in a coma and couldn't have children. The sad thing to you was how the evidence was handled. This is a woman that is completely without any empathy, and it's really why she also has no empathy for any woman whatsoever. She obviously has no empathy for Muslim women who are being stoned for being raped in Saudi Arabia. She doesn't have any sympathy for Muslim women suffering female genital mutilation. This is not a woman on the side of women or children. The only woman that she's on the side of is herself. I want to say, and I've been into some debates with attorneys over this case that want to justify it in the same way Andrew Napolitano has tried to justify what she did, same thing with Megyn Kelly. You and I know as conservatives, Julio, that we need defense attorneys to protect us against an overreaching government. She did not do that. She did not have to destroy the child. She did not have to blame the child for her own rape. To me, it's obvious why she's comfortable partnering with Islamists who do this to women. I mean, this is like the Taliban.
Exactly, yeah.
For the rape. Islam is the perfect partner for the progressives. You want more torture of women to happen in this country and children, vote for Hillary.
Exactly. I mean, they practice honor killings. If you don't, marry the man that you're arranged to marry, you could, you're either ostracized, you can be punished by they throw acid in the faces of the women. They even kill them. But let me ask you a question as a woman. There was a very interesting piece of tape that came out last week of Barack Obama on a campaign flight, surrounded by female staffers, parading around an erection. Now, we've heard Donald Trump on the tape say, a couple stupid things to Billy Bush. No harm, no foul. No one was harmed in the making of that tape. But, I mean, we have Barack Obama. There's probably married women that are part of that staff. It's just really foul. I mean, it's really, there's no place for it. But you don't hear about that in the media. The media will not, cycle that through the news cycle. They will not put it out there, for public consumption. They're going to hide it, But what is your personal take as a woman? Like, if you were, let's say, on a campaign plane, let's say, volunteering, with the best of intentions for Mr. Trump, and Mr. Trump pulled something like that, what would be your take on it?
Well, it would be the same take I would have that if any man in a professional setting proceeded to try to do that to me. To me, that's actually, we had a news guy here in San Diego who lost his entire career because he did something similar. That is almost an assault in and of itself. When you are parading your genitals and shoving it in the face of somebody, and I would tell him, I don't know what you're trying to do with that, but I'd try to make a joke and say, hadn't anybody ever told you could take somebody's eye out with that thing? What are you doing trying to shove that in my face? You turn right around and take 3 steps in the other direction, and you do it pronto, okay? And oh, by the way, then I'm going to go and bust you to the world for what you just tried to do to me. So So I don't put up with that from anybody, and that's why these women that are suddenly coming out of a 30-year fog without suddenly, I guess, having their memories suppressed over what Trump supposedly did to her, it's crap. When a woman is legitimately assaulted in some way, physically or in a harassing way with some man shoving his erection in her face, a woman speaks up. And even if she doesn't in that moment, because maybe it's in mixed company or she's shocked, she's caught off guard, she ain't going to wait 30 years. And certainly any woman out there, shame on you if you think that you have information about a presidential candidate that should be a deal breaker for other women. You don't wait until 3 weeks before the election. Where were these women during the primaries?
Exactly. You know what's funny, and I brought this up when I was interviewing Steve Malzberg for the Monday show. I think that these are obviously unsubstantiated claims. There's no way to prove it either way. So at this point, anybody can say anything. But I think that for civil purposes, I think that the reason that they're coming out now, the really old ones, is that these would not even be entertained in a civil court. They're well beyond, I think, any kind of statute of limitations. So at this point, you're not looking to get anything out of it personally. There's not going to be any financial gain for these people coming out now. So it's pure slander. And there was a report that I read on social media. I can't confirm it. I actually should look into it further, that this woman that made this claim, that's supposedly 36, 37 years old, is actually a Hillary Clinton staffer. Now, I don't know whether or not it's true. Have you read that report or seen anything to that effect yourself?
Well, I've heard that, and it hasn't been substantiated. We do know that every one of these women that is supposedly coming forth now are Democrats, and they are Clinton supporters, whether or not they're paid as staffers. One has associations with the Clinton Foundation. Supposedly, at the end of the day, they all have the payoff for them is through the course of trying to get their candidate elected. That's obvious. We also know that according to WikiLeaks, and of course none of us can really substantiate a lot of what WikiLeaks is coming forth with, but it also has not been refuted by the Clinton campaign either. So that they were actually attempting to run Craigslist ads to try to come up with allegations against Trump. If all these women were telling the truth, why would they need to run Craigslist ads to try to find actresses to level false accusations? This is a man that spent the last 40 years of his life doing nothing but being surrounded by beautiful women, and there's been no claims before. One of the women now supposedly tried to get a job with him supposedly afterwards. Let me tell you, as a woman, you don't do that. You don't seek out employment from somebody that you're so devastated over a sexual assault from, regardless of how it went down. This is meant to, it's almost like shock and awe. They keep coming out with more and more and more to try to make the conversation be about this, be about these women, and have it be everything but the truth about Hillary Clinton and her crimes and her corruption. And shame on the Republican Party for letting her get away with it, Julio. Where have they been? Why have they not been en masse on the steps of Congress talking about what is being discovered with WikiLeaks, the collusion with the mainstream media, the collusion with the Department of Justice, the collusion with the State Department, the revelations about the Benghazi emails? They're doing nothing.
Exactly. Yeah, and I'm more disillusioned with my fellow Republicans because there was a list published the other day of all the Republicans that have rescinded their support for Donald Trump, the ones that were never Trump to begin with, and it makes me sick. Like, I look at it like this, right? If you're a congressman or you're a senator and you're making promises on the campaign trail, you're going to do this, you're going to propose this legislation, you're going to fight for this, you're going to fight for that. Let me tell you something. We're not going to get a veto-proof majority. If you're not backing up the Republican candidate, the Republican nominee that will actually sign those pieces of legislation into law, what are you doing? I mean, whose interests are you actually operating in favor of?
Well, yeah.
Go ahead. No. What were you going to say?
Well, I was just going to say, actually, they're proving why Trump won the nomination, because we heard back in 2010 that after Obamacare got passed, that, Obama has both houses of Congress and he's got the White House. You got to give us the House of Representatives. That's where the spending starts. Give us the House and we can do something to stop Obama. Okay, the Tea Party gave him the House of Representatives. What happened? Nothing. Then in 2014, we know what happened. The majority of Americans, including Democrats and independents, were upset over two things: the results of what they were seeing happen with Obamacare and the executive orders and the amnesty and the open borders. And the Republican Party had said, give us the Senate, give us both houses of Congress, and we can stop this. And what happened afterwards? They have done nothing. Then the excuse was, and here's what's pivotal to me, they said, well, now we got to have the White House because we don't have a supermajority, so he can still veto our legislation. You got to give us the White House. So okay, so now my question for you, Paul Ryan, you're saying we've got to protect the down ballots and we're going to let go of the White House. Well, no. You already told me, Paul Ryan, that you can't get anything done in Congress without the White House. So why should I vote for you or any other Republican congressional candidate, especially the incumbents, when you've already said you're not going to be able to get anything done without the White House?
Exactly. And, Paul Ryan, you bring up a good point. I did an episode back in December when we were talking about the omnibus bill. And there was news that came out last week that we set a record for collected revenue last year. It was like $3.6 trillion that was collected through tax revenue. We still ran a $600 billion deficit. It was $587 billion, I think, to be exact. In that omnibus bill, with 95 million unemployed Americans, there was a provision to allow for the issuance of visas, 300,000 to people coming from predominantly Muslim countries. And then they attacked Donald Trump for what I think is a very intelligent, pragmatic, and certainly in the best interest of the American people policy that he wants to instill of super vetting to make sure that we're safe. We've seen the horrors of what's going on in Europe. We saw what happens in Paris. We saw what happened in Brussels. We've seen all the sexual assaults in Germany where pepper spray has set records. Pepper spray, if you would have invested in pepper spray in Germany, you'd be very rich right now because there's so many sexual assaults going on right now, and it gets swept under the rug. Merkel, I don't know what the hell she's thinking. She's trying to come off as some sort of humanitarian globalist. I think she's the ultimate Soros puppet for this globalization. I mean, what are we supposed to do when our own party has turned against us? I mean, I almost feel, Andrea, we do need to start a third party, a conservative party, with eyes on taking the White House in 2020.
Well, yeah, you hit a whole lot of really important points in that. The Republican Party has treated conservatives like the Democrat Party treats the black vote. When they take us for granted, they do exactly what Donald Trump says the Democrats do to the black voters. Every year around election time, general election time, they promise us to do this and promise to do that to get the vote, and then they do nothing, and 4 years goes by, then they come back and they promise the same crap again. That's what Paul Ryan said. Well, we've got to focus on down ballot so that we don't give Hillary Clinton a blank check. You mean like the one that you gave Obama? And everybody knows. Everybody knows from Hillary Clinton to Paul Ryan and to every Republican exactly what the scourge of Muslim immigration has done to Germany. WikiLeaks just revealed the other day in emails that Hillary Clinton and John Podesta in the emails, they refer to multiculturalism as human mad cow. That is how insane it is to bring that into this country, and yet Hillary Clinton is continuing to do it, and she's doing it, and Obama is doing it with the help of Paul Ryan. Our Republican Party leadership there's no difference between them and their policy agenda, zero difference. And that's why Paul Ryan came out when Donald Trump spoke what every American already knew was truth. We need to stop bringing people here from these terrorist countries, not just because they're terrorists, but because they also cannot assimilate into our culture. It is an anti-woman, anti-child, anti-American culture. Right now, we've got enormous numbers of cases of tuberculosis going on in Minnesota, so there's a scourge of disease.
And 100,000 to 400,000 per case to treat at the expense of the taxpayer.
Exactly. And when Paul Ryan came out against Donald Trump on the refugee issue, he used the same exact verbiage that the left uses against us. That's not our values. That's not what our party is all about. Well, he must be referring to his Democrat Party, because the Republican and conservatives, we're supposed to be protecting our country. We're supposed to be a nation of laws and of borders and the protection of American culture and our security.
Yeah, and you know what? It's so hypocritical on both sides, because you have the Democrats know what, as far as this multicultural, like allowing these open borders and letting all these people come in, they know is a bad thing, but they're going to paint it as we're the bad guys for not allowing it. And then at the same time, you get people like Paul Ryan who put up opposition to what conservatives want, which is our sovereign borders. We want to be a nation of laws. All these things. But this is the difference between a campaign conservative, somebody that comes out when they want to be reelected, and they talk the talk. They talk about, we're going to, protect American values. American exceptionalism is a real thing. We're going to try to create opportunities for Americans by, enforcing immigration law. But at the end of the day, they believe in the same things that the Democrats do. And it's really not black and white anymore with party to party. There's really shades of gray because progressivism has infiltrated the Republican Party. And at this point, there really are. There's progressive Democrats, progressive Republicans, and then there's us. And unfortunately, we only really truly account for maybe 30% of the voting populace. So I really don't know what the answer is at this point.
Well, I think that the answer is Donald Trump, because we now have the Republican Party itself and has allowed itself for a couple of different reasons. There are some true conservatives in the Republican Party, but they allowed themselves to be pressured by the leaders of the party to drag the party and the nation to the left. And it's because right now, Paul Ryan, to get back to his point of we got to focus on down ballots so we can stop Hillary Clinton. It was, they got to have this majority and that majority of the House. Remember back during the Bush administration, we had both houses of Congress and we had the White House. And what happened? What did the Republican Party do? They expanded our government, greatest expansion of government, and it came under President what was supposed to be a conservative president. Compassionate conservatism was nothing but liberalism under the cloak of conservatism. They don't believe, most of the party does not believe in true conservatism. And now, because of that, they lied to us and lied to us and lied to us. They didn't do anything to secure the border because W himself wanted comprehensive immigration control reform, which meant amnesty. It meant keeping the borders open. They didn't seal it. And now here we are with 60% of Americans calling themselves Democrat. I love Ted Cruz, but somebody who's considered a true, pure, 100% conservative to the far right can't get elected right now. We need Trump because Trump can bring people in from the Democrat side, bring people in from the independents, because the issues that he speaks to are American issues. They're not traditional conservative or traditional liberals. Americans who are out of work know that we don't need any more long-term career politicians who are attorneys who don't know how to run and start a business in control of our economy. The average American knows when they see terrorist attack after terrorist attack after terrorist attack happening on our shores here, and it's Muslims doing it, that they don't want to hear this PC crap about Muslims, okay? So we need Trump. And the fact that this man who has nobody on his side in Washington, he's up against the media, he's up against his own party, he's up against the left, and he's still, even if you believe the polls, he's still in there. It's astounding. We've got Trump elected.
Exactly. From your lips to God's ears. Tonight, the debate, the important debate, the momentum debate headed towards Election Day. Give me your prediction. 30 seconds.
Well, my prediction is that the media is going to say that Hillary won. And they're going to continue to pound that drum. And that's to be expected. I think that my prediction on the debate is that Trump will win because he's got facts on his side, and I think that the American people will hear some hard truths about Hillary. Americans have a choice, and it's very clear, even though the mainstream media has tried to hide the truth from the American people, it's out there. America, you have a choice.
Alrighty, and tell everyone where they can get you, Andrea.
Well, my show's on KCBQ AM 1170 here in San Diego, 6 p.m. My website, I'm also on Red Nation Rising Radio Network, SHR Media. Go to AndreaKShow.com for all the details. And I love being on your show, Julio.
Oh, and I just love being on your show. You're the best, Andrea. Andrea Kaye, the California Love episode. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll pray for Mr. Trump. And we'll be back with more show after that.
Politics got you down? Is your team in last place? Is your significant other sleeping with your neighbor? Well, cheer up. The Julio Rivera Show is on. Deal with your problems afterwards.
Find the Lanterns Radio Network on
on Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, iTunes. They can intercept this transmission at any time, so I'll be brief. The fight is here. The time is now. Go behind enemy lines. Player FM, YouTube, and other social media by searching keyword Lanterns Pause or Lanterns Radio Network.
Hi, I'm Adam Marr, Apache helicopter pilot and COO of the Warrior Angels Foundation, a 501c3 with a superior treatment for our veterans suffering with TBI and PTS. We have found a solution that pinpoints and treats the underlying condition and are providing that solution for veterans across the nation, but we need your help. Go to waftbi.org to find out more. That's waftbi.org.
You're listening to the #1 source for political, pop culture, and sports talk on the radio. The Julio Rivera Show. #Conservarican. With no fuck left to give. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, hit it!
We are controlling transmission.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Julio Rivera Show is on.
And popping as we find ourselves Debate Wednesday. Kind of scary, when you think about it. You figure the media is going to spin this no matter what the results from tonight into a victory for Hillary Clinton. Donald Trump has to almost win going away. It has to be a rout in order for the message to be expressed to the American people that he actually won the debate. And even then, it's going to be painted as, oh, well, Donald Trump didn't win the debate. Hillary Clinton made better points. They're going to cut out of 90 minutes or so, maybe a couple of little sound bites, the little jabs, maybe where it's perceived that she's winning, and try to sensationalize and overblow that. And basically they're gonna demagogue this guy from now until election day. So I mean, if you're a Republican, and don't get caught up in that whole this thing's already decided stuff, because they're gonna try to convince you that your vote is meaningless and that this thing was decided months ago. And it's not really true. The one thing I do want to see tonight is I want to see a composed and informed Mr. Trump that's capable of beating her on these issues, because it is of extreme importance that this thing in the last couple of weeks gets swung back into the issues, that we start talking about the economy. The reason why all these distractions kind of take the forefront, in my opinion, is because we have this negative economy, and they want to do everything they can to take your eyes off of what the real issues are and what the problems are in this country. And they want to say, oh, well, it's racist police officers. Donald Trump is going to create a society where men can be misogynistic, and they're just going to do everything they can to try to just sully him and muddy his name, and give credence to all these false stories that are coming out now that are, and I don't want to call them false stories, but how do you substantiate whether or not they're true or not? I mean, it's basically a he said, she said, and anyone can come out right now and make any claim that they want to against this guy, and the media is going to run with it. And as I said before, the media issuing their retractions a week after the election, after it's already decided, is going to be too late. It's all about truth at this point. And the truth of the matter is Hillary Clinton has operated lawlessly for over 30 years, pretty much 40 years inside of the government. And it's time to change the machine, and it's time to kick out all these politicians who have done nothing but use their positions to enrich themselves. My name is Julio Rivera. This is the Julio Rivera Show. #Conservarican, www.conservarican.com. Catch us on Lanterns Radio Network. God bless you all, and good luck to Mr. Trump tonight. Have a good one.